how can a semi-open file become the foundation of a winning plan? Magnus Carlsen shows us how to use it to attack the weaknesses, to coordinate the pieces, and dictate every exchange. So let's look at his game against Grandmaster Swane Rasmus. So Carlsen has white pieces and he started with the move d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. So this is the Nimzo Indian defense, and white has quite a good number of options. Queen c2 is one, a3 is one, e3 is one, knight f3 is one, g3. Even bishop d2 is also there. So one of the more sharper ones is f3. So basically, white is like, all right, I am not focusing on development. I'm weakening my king side a little bit, but I want to play e4. I want to get my pawn in the center. By the way, he could not play e4 earlier because the knight is pinned, so there would be knight takes e4. So then, Swane plays the move d5. So he's like, all right, I was not planning to play the Queen's Gambit declined, sort of the d5 variation, but now I'm doing it to stop e4. So Carlsen plays a3. The bishop can't go back because it would get trapped. b4, bishop b6, and then c5. And Carlsen, so bishop into c3, then b into c3, Carlsen would get the double bishop advantage. And the position remains complicated. So Swane played the move bishop e7. He's like, all right, my bishop was on b4, but I have sort of provoked you to play f3. Your king side has gotten weaker, so I'll just bring the bishop back. So Carlsen, like, all right, my knight is not pinned. I'll play e4. A slightly risky strategy because even though he is bringing his pawn in the center, but since the pawn has been pushed, so before he is able to complete his development in castle, if black is able to create some activity, then it might be some trouble for Carlsen. But Swane plays the move d takes e4. Now, of course, f takes e4. It's time to bring the pawn in the center. Then in this position, Swane plays the move c5. So a really instructive move because he wants to challenge the center. And Carlsen doesn't want to open it because d takes e5, then it would lead to queen d1, bishop takes e5, that bishop would get active and just gives unnecessary activity. So Carlsen is like, all right, I'll avoid exchange of pawns. I'll gain some space on the queen side. Also, there's a pass pawn. Then in this position, Swane plays the move e takes d5. Then Carlsen plays the move e takes d5. Now, should he not have played c takes d5? He would have two pawns in the center. He could, but the problem is that if this happens, then there can be bishop d6 type of ideas, then knight bd7, and then there is castle, and then the rook will get to e8. There might be some pressure over here. So Carlsen was not a big fan of that because the center is there, but it's not as stable as he would want. So that's why he played e takes d5. He's like, it's fine. I'll have one pawn in the center instead of two, but at least it will be more stable. In this position, Swane played the move castle. Then, in this, Carlsen played bishop e2. So, he quickly wants to complete his king side development in castle. Please remember that when it comes to development, you should try to prefer the king side development first so that you can castle. a6 gets played. Carlsen just goes for knight f3. h6 gets played. So, Swane did not play as actively as he should have, and now Carlsen is able to castle, and he has the semi-open f-file. Now, how he will start putting pressure on the king side is we'll see. So, Swane played the move bishop d6. Now, when you're trying to put pressure on your opponent's king, it's extremely important that you should be careful about the counterplay that the opponent can have on your king as well. So for that reason, Carlsen played the move king h1. So what's the reason? So because he's like, all right, this there is no pawn on f3 and this triangle is open. Even though the pawn is on c5, but still there can be some chance of that check coming. Maybe if the knight is exchanged, maybe something like this, or maybe if b5 pawn sacrifice and then c4 and queen b6. So he's like, let's not take any chances. Let's just slide the king over to h1 and then start something on the king side. So Swane plays the move bishop f5, developing the bishop, and then Carlsen plays the move knight h4. So from now onwards, we'll see how he tries to make use of the semi-open file that he has. So by the way, a semi-open file is the one where one side does not have pawns on that, but the other side has a pawn. So that's why white has control of this semi-open f file. So knight h4, improving the knight's position. Bishop h7 was played. Now, some of you would be thinking that, all right, since Carlsen played the move knight h4 after bishop h7, he would play the move knight f5, improving the knight's position. He did not play that. The reason is that there is bishop takes f5, rook takes f5. Yes, he gets the double bishop advantage. The problem is that there is knight bd7, and now how to increase the pressure? Because, say for example, if he plays bishop d3, then there is knight e5. Can be some pressure over here. There can be rook e8 idea. There can be queen c7 idea. Not one of the most pleasant looking positions for white. So Carlsen did not want the double bishop advantage at the cost of helping black in improving his pieces. He wanted to keep the pressure on the king side, and he recognized that yes, this bishop is playing an important role. So he needs to exchange it, but he needs to exchange it with the right piece. So that's why he played the move bishop d3. Extremely instructive move actually. So he's not planning to play knight f5 to let it get exchanged. He's like, no, my knight is more valuable. It will be even more valuable on f5. And I don't want it to get exchanged. So I'll exchange that bishop and then I will get my knight to f5. So, and combined with this control of the semi-open file, it won't be that easy for black to handle it. Now, before we go ahead, I invite you to explore the finer points of positions like these on chessneurons.com. We study daily positions like these in more depth to increase your understanding and help you make such decisions in your games. So let's continue. So after bishop d3, Swane played the move bishop takes d3. I mean, he cannot play something like g6 to avoid it because the king side gets weak and even this pawn would fall. So that would be too much. So he played this, queen takes d3, and he plays knight bd7. He's like, all right, that's fine. I'll just try to complete my development. But then Carlsen's knight gets to f5. About the f5 knight, Kasparov had once said that once the knight gets on f5, the value of it increases quite a bit. So the main reason is that there are certain sacrifice ideas that can happen. It is also keeping an eye on the queen side. So yeah, the effect of the knight on f5. And more importantly, when the rook is active, when the rook is on the semi-open file, it would be too much at some point for black to handle. So then Swane played bishop e5. He's like, all right, I'll centralize my bishop. And now Carlsen played the move bishop takes h6. So he's taking advantage of the weak king side of Swane. Now, what's the plan behind that? So let's just see how the game went and then we'll get back to this position. So Swane is like, all right, I don't want to accept the sacrifice. It's too dangerous. He played g6. But then there was just simply bishop into f8, queen into f8, and then knight h4. Queen h6 was played. So he was hoping that maybe if knight f3, then he can try for knight g4 or something. But Carlsen played queen h3. And then now he's offering exchange of queens, although his pawn structure would get bad, but that's fine. He's up in material, so he would be able to handle things. And then he went on to win the game. So the later part is not that interesting for us, but let's go back. So after knight f5, bishop e5, Carlsen played bishop takes h6. What if Swane had accepted the sacrifice after g takes h6? And then in this position, Carlsen, of course, has an option to either capture this pawn, and that's not a bad idea. But what he can try to do is, he can try to bring one more piece in the attack, that is rook h e1. So, and then say for example, something like queen c7 gets played, then there is queen h3, further increasing the pressure. If there is h5, then the persistent pressure is still there, d6. The sacrifice is there. Why? Because if bishop takes d6, then there is this idea of queen e3. Now, there is the idea of queen g5. And then, more importantly, so why was d6 played? To remove the bishop from e5. So if knight h7 is played to cover this, then there would be queen h6. And since the bishop is not on e5, this is coming with tempo. And now if the bishop comes here, then there is knight e5. There is, there's an option of, so if black plays like queen d8 or something, then rook into e5, and then this would be made. And if queen b8 happens, then also it's too much because one more piece will get into the attack, and it's just a matter of time before the king side will collapse. So it all started For Carlsen, by having control of the semi-open files, he recognized that he has potential to do something on the king side. But he did not rush. He played the move king h1. Because, say for example, if knight h4 gets played, then in certain lines, there is this idea of knight g4 because bishop h2 in certain lines can come with a check. And that's a problem. So, and as I had mentioned at that time, there can be something through this diagonal if some sacrifices there and this pawn gets pushed. So, Carlsen made the king safe first, then improved the knight's position, and the most important thing, here double bishop is not the most important part of the thing. It's actually important to keep those attacking pieces, keep that knight. So that's why he exchanged the key defender with the bishop, and after that knight got to f5. It was at some point became too much for Swane to defend, and Magnus Carlsen won an extremely instructive game. Thanks everyone for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.